Good day, Scott.
Hello,
It is a
Scott.
real pleasure. Oh, Entschuldigung, ich muss noch mal von
I'm
vorne
sorry, I have to
anfangen.
start again.
Also, hallo, Scott.
Hello,
Es ist mir
Scott.
eine sehr
It's
große Freude,
a
dass
great
du
pleasure
bei mir auf der
that you are
Webcast
participating in
mitmachst.
my webcast.
Du bist
You are
bekannt dafür, dass du
very well known
sehr klare Worte
for speaking out
findest
very
über
clearly
die politische Lage
about
und
the political
Amerika
situation.
hat in 11 Tagen
United
einen neuen
States has
Präsidenten.
a
Es
new
gab ja viele
president in 11
Experten,
days. Many experts pointed
sich
to
gewundert haben, ob in dieser Zeit
were asking
möglicherweise noch
themselves
eine
of in
größere
this time, during this
Katastrophe
time, a greater
passiert
catastrophe
von
could
der alten
happen
Administration,
on behalf of the
Trump
old
so
administration to
schwer
make
wie möglich zu
Trump's
machen.
life
Die
as difficult as
Zitterpartie ist
possible.
noch nicht
So
vorbei,
this
aber
shaky
selbst
situation
wenn
is not
Trump
over yet. But even if Trump
zurückkommt, ist ja die Lage
enters
etwas
office, the
verwirrend.
situation is
Auf der
still
einen Seite
confusing.
gibt
On the
es
one
durchaus
hand, you have
hoffnungsvolle
hopeful
Anzeichen, also
signs.
einige seiner Appointments,
Some of
Tulsi Gabbard
his
for
appointments,
National
such as
Director
Tulsi
of
Gabbard for
Intelligence und
DNI
einige andere
and some
lassen ja
others,
Hoffnung, dass den
give us hope
Deep
that
State, was viele Leute Deep
he
State
can
nennen,
actually
tatsächlich angeht. Und hat jetzt gerade
tackle
auf
the deep state, what
X,
some people
auf
call the
seinem
deep state.
Social
And
Account,
on X, his social account
Jeffrey
on
Sachs
X,
ein Video
he
gepostet,
posted a
wo Jeffrey Sachs
video
praktisch
where Jeffrey
Operation
Sachs
Sycamore
talks about Operation
attackiert und
Sycamore and
die
attacks it.
CIA
The CIA
Order für die
order
Destabilisierung vom
to
Nahen Osten. Du
destabilize
warst
the Middle East. You, Scott,
Waffeninspektor der
were the UN weapons
UN und
inspector,
hast die Lügen
and
über den Irakkrieg ja
you have talked about the lies of the Iraq War,
deutlich
and we are very grateful
denunziert.
for your
Also,
denunciation of these
schätzt du das
lies.
ein, dass Trump
What do you
quasi
think?
10 oder 11
Trump
Tage bevor ins Amt
has
kommt,
11 days before
Jeffrey
he
Sachs
enters
zu Wort kommen
office.
lässt? Ist also die Hoffnung,
He
dass
is
er diese
letting Jeffrey
Netzwerke
Sachs talk
wirklich
about these networks.
also ausheben
Can
wird.
we hope
Vielleicht
that
fangen wir damit mal
he
an.
actually wants to eradicate, these networks?
I think that we're going to see that President Trump is going to be, in every way, shape, and form, a game-changing president. This is not presidency as usual. This is not what the duopoly in America normally produces, somebody from the establishment. And it doesn't matter if there's an R next to their name or a D next to their name, they do establishment policies. This is why you'll have Republicans and Democrats use the CIA to carry out activities such as Timber Sycamore in Syria. Trump has said that he does not want to be the world's policeman. And that means that he not only does he not want to be fighting overseas wars, he doesn't want the CIA to be creating overseas conflicts for the United States to fight in. He is rightfully, on several occasions, called out the United States as being the greatest threat to the United States, meaning that the way we behave in the world is the problem, and that the solution is not only to stop this behavior, but to bring down the organizations that help foster this behavior, that facilitate this behavior. And the CIA is one such organization. The deep state, the way the establishment interferes in the formulation of American policy. He's also looking to take down overseas architectures that have long been held to be sacrosanct, sacred to America, such as NATO. I don't believe NATO is going to survive very long into the Trump administration. Already, before he's president, we have NATO members talking about the potential for war between the United States and Europe. Now, I know they don't mean it because they certainly can't fight it, but that's where we're at. Instead of the greatest unity we've ever seen, we're already seeing deep fractures, fatal fractures in the European architecture of government. And Trump will exploit this. Trump will do his best to disengage from the entanglements of NATO, of the European Union, and of other treaty-related and alliance-related architectures that are out there. So I think there is hope. And people often look at his cabinet and say, yes, he's appointed some outliers like Tulsi Gabbard. People are in love with Tulsi Gabbard. And they are very concerned about people like the Secretary of Defense nominee or the National Security Advisor, Michael Wirtz, that's coming in. They say, but these are just, Zionists. They're people who are going to foster certain policies promoting Israel. Perhaps. But they're also architects of change. They're not playing the establishment game. People can be critical of their one-sided support of Israel, but you need to recognize that that same mindset also enables them to support Trump as he tears down NATO, Trump as he makes peace with Russia. Imagine that, a president who is actually talking about making peace with Russia and stating up front that he recognizes that the reason this war happened is because of NATO expansion.
Ist ohne Zweifel, also jede Veränderung von dem,
Without
was
doubt, any
jetzt
change
ist,
made by him on the status quo is
mit Sicherheit positiv.
certainly
Aber ich
positive.
meine, es ist so
However,
zwischen Hoffen und
we
Bangen,
are going
weil bei
between
der
hope and
Pressekonferenz
fears
in
because during his
Florida,
press conference in
glaube ich, war
Florida,
das,
I think it was in
da hat
Florida,
gerade
he said
gesagt, ja, also
that,
Panama-Kanal
well,
muss
the
wieder
Panama
amerikanisch
Canal
werden,
has to
Kanada
become
wäre
American
schön, wenn
again.
diese
Would
Grenze
be
zwischen
nice if
Kanada
the
und den
border
USA
between
verschwinden
Canada and the
würde.
United States would vanish.
Greenland als
Greenland,
Grönland will er kaufen.
he wants to purchase
Anderen NATO-Mitglieder
the
sollen
other
5%
NATO
von ihrem
members
Budget
should
für Militärausgaben
spend
ausgeben.
5%
Dann hat er
of their
vorher
budget
schon
for military
angekündigt, dass
expenditures.
er Zölle
And then he announced that
gegen
he would
China, aber auch gegen
have
die EU
tariffs
machen
against
wird.
China, but
Also
also
all
against
das
the
sind
European Union.
eigentlich
All of these are
doch
actually
Äußerungen,
quite,
naja, also
utterances
nicht gerade die Souveränität anderer Staaten
which are not
respektiert. Also
really
wie siehst du
respect the
das?
sovereignty of other states. How do you see this?
Trump doesn't respect the sovereignty of anybody but the United States. This is the reality of Trump. But the world said they wanted change. Well, you've got change. You don't think America could produce someone capable of the changes that you applaud, who then also said, I comply with international law. I comply with the rules-based international order. Understand, Donald Trump is divorcing America from the rules-based international order. It's a divorce. The marriage between the United States and Europe is over, finished. And divorces are ugly.
Ja, also das
Yes,
kann positiv und negativ
it
sein.
can be positive and negative.
Trump kommt am 20.
Trump
Januar ins
is
Weiße Haus.
incoming into his
Ungefähr 4
office
Wochen
January the
später
20th.
ist in
About 4 weeks
Deutschland
later, there's an
eine
election
Bundestagswahl,
in Germany, about German
auch
parliamentary
möglicherweise
election,
die ungeliebteste Regierung
which is
der Nachkriegszeit
also
endgültig beendet. Das war die
canceling the
sogenannte
most
Ampelregierung.
disliked
Aber wenn man
so-called
nach den
traffic light
Umfragen geht, ist
government of all
auszuschließen,
times. But if you
dass
look at the
die
polls, it's
CDU
not
und Friedrich
cannot be
Merz,
excluded
der
that
sich
the
vehement
Christian
für die
Democrats and
Entsendung von
Friedrich Merz,
Taurus-Raketen
who is for sending the Taurus
eingesetzt hat an die
missile
Ukraine,
to the
dass er
Ukraine,
wahrscheinlich
he
die
could come to
Wahl
power
gewinnt und dann eine Regierung
and win the
bilden kann mit
elections and
entweder der
form a
SPD oder mit den
government
Grünen.
with the Social
In jedem
Democrats or the
Fall,
Greens. In any
wenn Trump
case,
die
if Trump
Rules die Regeln so vollkommen
the
verändert,
changes the
was denkst
rules in
du,
such a way, what do you
wie der
think
Effekt sein wird auf
would be
die
the effect
Wahl in
on
Deutschland
the
4 Wochen
election in
später?
Germany 4 weeks later?
Germany needs to understand the following. The world is over as you know it. You've been raised for the past 3 to 4 decades operating under the protection of the United States, under the umbrella of the United States. That's over, finished. Trump is going to walk away from this. So now when you elect your next government, let me make the following guarantee. If this Christian Democratic Party gentleman wins and he tries to send Taurus missiles to Ukraine, Germany will be hit with tariffs like you will have never seen before in your entire life. The United States will shut your economy down. You see, because you're interfering with a policy prerogative of a president of the United States. Germany doesn't get to sit at the same table as the United States. Not with Donald Trump. You're not our equals. You're not our equals. So don't pretend that you are. This is the reality of Trump. I'm not saying that I'm happy about this. You asked me a question about the reality. And the reality is the game has changed. And this is no longer about American presidents flying to Germany and treating you with respect. This is about American presidents dictating outcomes to you. So the German people have to ask themselves, are they going to vote for somebody who's going to put them in conflict with the United States? Or are they going to understand that the path forward is a path that is radically different than the one you're currently on, that requires you to have peace with Russia? And I would tell you, there is a party in Germany that is promoting peace.
Okay, ich verstehe
Okay,
das schon,
I
aber
understand
es gibt
this,
ja auch Anzeichen, dass
but
Trump
there are also
möglicherweise
signs that
doch
Trump
mit
could
europäischen
potentially
Staaten kooperieren will,
cooperate
um
with
einige
European
Probleme zu lösen, als
countries
zum
to
Beispiel
solve some of the
war
problems. For
Giorgia
example,
Meloni von
Giorgia
Italien auch
Meloni,
in Florida, hat ihn
Prime Minister of
besucht.
Italy, was in
Vorher
Florida to
war
visit him.
Orban da von
Before that,
Ungarn,
Orban of Hungary was
Präsidentendenken
also
Fico und
there,
natürlich
Fico
jetzt mit
of
der neuen
Slovakia,
Entwicklung in
and also with the new
Österreich von
developments in
vor
Austria
2 Tagen,
of
wo der
2 days ago,
Herbert Kickl
where
der
Herbert
neue
Kickl
Bundeskanzler wird,
is about to
der
become
auch
the
in
new Chancellor of
dieselbe Richtung
Austria,
geht, kritisch
who also goes in
gegenüber
the same
der
direction to be
antirussischen Politik,
critical against
kritisch gegenüber der
anti-Russian
EU.
policies,
Und
critical against the European
siehst du
Union.
nicht die Möglichkeit,
Don't you see the
dass es vielleicht eine
possibility
neue
that there
Kombination
could be a new
von, oh ja, da wird
combination
also
of,
Elon
and oh
Tusk
yes,
morgen mit Alice Weidel
Mr.
von der AfD
Elon Musk will
auch
also
in
meet with
X
Alice Weidel
Twitter-Space
to have a
veranstalten,
Twitter
gemeinsame
space
Veranstaltung.
live.
Also man könnte ja auch
So
vielleicht annehmen, dass da sich eine neue
one could
Option
assume that there
für
is a
eine
new option building
transatlantische
up for
Kooperation
transatlantic cooperation.
abzeichnet. Oder schließt du das völlig aus?
Or are you excluding this entirely?
No, I'm not excluding it at all. But we shouldn't call it transatlantic, because even though that's the physical nature of what's happening, transatlantic relationship is linked to America and NATO, America and Europe, the European Union. What you're talking about is a relationship between the United States and Italy, between the United States and Hungary, between the United States and Slovakia, between the United States and Austria, independent nations, nations who have divorced themselves from the prison, the intellectual prison of the European Union. And so when Germany goes to the polls, does Germany want to have a relationship with the United States as Germany, which the United States would respect? Or is Germany can continue to be a prisoner of this artificial entity called the European Union and this failed alliance called NATO? If Germany wants to be part of the European Union and part of NATO, then you'll have problems with the United States. But if Germany says, no, we are independent, we are capable of forging our own path, and our path may coincide with that of yours when it comes to stability in Europe, peace with Russia, I think you'll find the United States is willing to talk to you.
Das klingt gar
That
nicht schlecht,
sounds
weil ich bin
not
sowieso der
bad,
Meinung,
because I'm
dass die
actually of the
jüngsten
opinion
Entwicklungen ja
that the latest
gezeigt haben,
developments
dass
have
wir in der
shown
NATO eigentlich
that
im
we,
Sicherheitsbündnis sind,
with
im Ernstfall
being within NATO, we are in the so-called
Fragezeichen auch
security
auf Deutschland überhaupt
alliance,
überleben wird. Also wir
which
hatten
raises the
verschiedene
questions if Germany would
Konferenzen
actually
in der
survive
letzten
this.
Zeit, wo
We had a lot of
Menschen,
conferences
die also
recently where
Militärs,
military
die
experts and
NATO-Manövern
former militaries
teilgenommen haben,
who participated in NATO exercises that the sending nuclear weapons to Germany would not be a problem. And the recent decision of Scholz at the NATO summit, where he laconically said that the United States have decided to station missiles on German soil, which was not discussed with the German parliament. There was no discussion in the German public, and Scholz just said the US has decided, not we have decided. The US has decided, and it's clear that the stationing of these weapons would make Germany to a top target. But how do you see this? Will Trump make this decision to station them in 2026, reverse it?
Donald Trump respects strength. And if Germany were to stand up to Donald Trump and say, we choose peace, we choose stability, and we reject the instruments of war and instability, and therefore we do not want these missiles stationed on our soil, Donald Trump, I believe, would respect that. Remember, this isn't Trump's policy. The Dark Eagle isn't Trump's doing. Trump didn't make that decision. The Biden administration did. They're done. They're finished. This was an establishment decision based upon a strategic goal and objective of creating the conditions that weaken Russia and bring Russia down. Trump is not looking to continue this policy direction. So I think that an assertive Germany standing up and saying, I believe in what's best for Germany, Trump would respect that. Trump doesn't respect a Germany that subordinates itself to the European Union and to NATO. Trump doesn't have any use for that Germany, but Trump does respect strong, independent voices.
Dann werden wir auf jeden Fall sicherstellen, dass
we will make sure that this dialogue between us will be sent to all the parties that are participating at the election. Because if in this situation there will be a clear statement, that would be very good, because the traffic light government only has around 20% of supporters. A lot of people in Germany are afraid of an escalation towards the big war. So if now the changing situation could be utilized to start finally a strategic debate that has been suppressed for such a long time, this would be a window of opportunity, a moment in which also the German history could take a completely different turn. What's your assessment?
I think German history is going to take a turn no matter what. The question is it going to continue turning towards disaster? And that's the direction you're headed on right now. What you call the traffic light government, what I call the failed government of Olaf Scholz, has taken Germany towards an off-ramp that leads to disaster. But there's a chance to keep Germany on the Autobahn towards success. But you have to change the driver. And that means that these elections have to bring about real change, not just simply a restatement of the failed policies, but completely new policies, a new political direction. The other thing I would throw out there for Germans to consider is there are some people who say, well, Trump will only be in power for 4 years, and we can just wait him out. That at the end of 4 years, the United States will return to the duopoly of the past. It's tough to predict the future, but let's understand this. Donald Trump was elected on a populist revolutionary mandate. This mandate ran over the traditional Republican Party. It no longer exists. And the Democratic Party showed itself to be fundamentally flawed, perhaps fatally flawed. If Trump executes half of what he says he wants to do in terms of revolutionary change against the against the establishment. His designated replacement, J.D. Vance, will be president in 4 years. That means that there will be no change in the direction. That's at least 8 years, and Vance could very well win re-election. That's 12 years. And because the Democrats have no viability, they won't be able to find any traction. You could have a follow-on. You could be looking at 20 years of MAGA rule, Make America Great Again rule. And Germany has to ask itself, does it want to head down a path that puts it in conflict with a 20-year dynasty? Or does it want to get on the ground floor and be part of whatever success is that this dynasty will be seeking? And that's a decision that will be made in the election later this year.
Also ich glaube auch, dass
I also believe
Trump die
that
Sache
Trump
mit Russland in
will
Ordnung bringen wird. Er hat
bring
seine
the
ursprüngliche Äußerung
thing with Russia, will bring it in order. He has said he would do it within 24
ein bisschen
hours,
geändert, sagt, er braucht ein halbes
but
Jahr.
he changed it a little bit,
Ich glaube auch, dass,
saying that he
also
needs
wenn
6
von
months.
Trump aus
But I also
diese
believe that
Politik geäußert
from the
wird,
perspective of Trump, if a
Fremde,
certain
die
policy will be
russischen
pursued
Sicherheitsinteressen
towards the Ukraine, which would
berücksichtigt,
respect
dass
German,
das gelöst werden kann.
Russian security
Also da bin ich eigentlich
interests, this can be solved. So I'm optimistic.
Wenn man jetzt auf die Lage im Nahen Osten
However, if you look at the
guckt,
Middle
das
East
ist
situation,
viel
it is
gefährlicher,
much
akut,
more
würde ich mal
dangerous
sagen,
and
weil es
acutely
vollkommen
because it's
untragbare
a
Situation ist.
completely
Also
untenable situation.
die neue Regierung in
The new
Syrien,
government in Syria,
die laut
which according to
Zenari,
Cardinal
der
Zenari,
Damaskus,
the nuntius in Damascus,
stabilisiert werden soll, weil die
should be
Bevölkerung
stabilized
unter den Sanctions so
because
unendlich gelitten
the
hat.
population has suffered so much under the Caesar sanctions. Apart from that, think about population. But this government under Al-Jolani or Al-Shara, no matter how you call him, was under a penalty of $10 million. The whole group comes from Idlib and has a terrorist background. So that is there's a powder keg. Today, Jerusalem Post has said that Israel has to prepare for a war with Turkey because it's already on the horizon, that there's territorial conflict between them in Syria. Israel has the Eretz Israel policy, and on the other hand, there are clear signs that Turkey wants to rebuild the Ottoman Empire, and there's a clash. Additionally, the internal situation in Syria is extremely complex. There are many factions that are at odds with each other, and the course of the new and see the course of the new government very critically, because there has not be called for an Islamic State or emirate. If Trump now says that Hamas should free the hostages before he enters office, or all hell will break loose, this is, in no uncertain terms, an absurd remark, because the hell is already there. What's happening in Gaza is hell. Doctors Against Genocide, which is an American Palestinian group who are now have started a mobilization about the complete escalation in Gaza, where especially hospitals, doctors, nurses have become targets to cut off the population medical support. So the new government and cabinet that comes into office with Trump, I have certain questions if Trump can do anything to secure the situation. Do you see any hope on the horizon?
If I were a Palestinian or a supporter of Palestine, there's no hope whatsoever. In order for Palestine to exist, Israel must be strategically defeated, because only the strategic defeat of Israel will disenfranchise this far right-wing government that says no to any notion of Palestinian state. You can't get traction with the creation of a Palestinian state if you have an Israeli government that says no. Under no circumstances will they allow it. So the only way that you can get traction is through the defeat of this government. It looked earlier this or late last year or mid last year that Netanyahu's government was on the verge of collapse. He faced crisis everywhere. But then he had a miracle happen. The collapse of Syria. Bashar al-Assad breathed new life and relevance into his government, and they are today firmly entrenched. And they will be entrenched when Donald Trump becomes president. And Donald Trump will do nothing to further the Palestinian cause. Remember, it was under Donald Trump that the Abrams Accords were finalized, and the Abrams Accords were a death sentence to Palestine. That's why Hamas did what it did on October 7th, because it had no other choice. But this gambit has failed. There will not be a Palestine. That's my sad assessment. Trump will do everything to ensure that whatever exists today that could be Palestine will never be, that Israel will be unified and strong. That's a tragedy for the Palestinian people. But Trump also believes that he wants to solve the problem of Israel's internal conflict with the Palestinians. He wants to prevent Israel from getting us entangled in wars. That was the importance of the Jeffrey Sachs interview, because from that, Trump was saying he blames Netanyahu for the wars in Iraq and for the wars in Syria. And he blames Netanyahu for putting the United States on a potential path of conflict with Iran. So I think Trump actually will be working overtime to try and bring about a new relationship with Iran. You already see potential of talks taking place between the Trump administration, the Iranian government, about their nuclear program. The news out of Israel about their concern over resurgence of Ottomanism out of Turkey is good for this, because I believe that the assessment said that they now deem Turkey to be a greater threat than the Iranian project. That means that rather than further empowering Turkey by bringing down the Iranian project, Israel will now change priorities and support an American effort to bring about an end of a conflict between Iran and Israel. Now, this will require Iran to give up its nuclear program, or at least the potential to make nuclear weapons. Iran may be in a position to do that. I don't know. But there's hope there. And when that happens, you'll see the United States put all the pressure it can bear on Turkey to keep Turkey from posing a threat to Israel. Turkey is very vulnerable to American economic intervention. The Turkish economy could be collapsed overnight if the United States chose to do so. And so Turkey's in no position to be dictating outcomes to Israel and to be threatening Israel. And so I think there's actually potential for big picture stability in the Middle East with a Trump administration. But two entities will be sacrificed because of this. The first is the Palestinian cause. I'm sorry to say it's over. It won't resurrect for decades. There will be more death and destruction while the remnants hold on in Gaza, but it's finished. And the Kurds will likewise be sold out by the United States. We have done this before, and I believe Trump is prepared to do it again to bring about a regional stability. He will not sacrifice regional stability for the cause of Kurdish independence or autonomy. But as long as you don't care about the Kurds or the Palestinians, then this is a good this is a good thing. But if you care about the Palestinian cause, as I do, and you care about the Kurds as people should, then this is a tragedy for those two people.
Also, ich bin mir nicht sicher,
Well,
ob
I'm not sure whether the powers or the power balance of Iran is such that they will give up the powers of the axis of resistance. I think that Khamenei is playing still a big role. I don't know. Excuse me if I'm voicing my doubts, but there are strategic changes. On the 17th of January, Iran will sign a comprehensive economic and military agreement with Russia, which could change the situation in an earnest way. The option that the nuclear facilities in Iran could be attacked without attacking the entire military network of Iran, Russia, China, North Korea, and with the implications, the entire combination of states of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, you would pull this all in. So the option of Israel to make this step would be massively reduced. And I don't think, well, despite the neighboring countries have done almost nothing for the Palestinian cause, I don't think that this is the sentiment, the emotional situation of the people of the neighboring states. Maybe you could say something about this.
Well, let's talk about Iran first of all. First of all, whatever agreements signed between Russia and Iran on January 17th, I'll tell you what it's not: a comprehensive defensive alliance. It's not a treaty that says Russia guarantees the security of Iran, that if Iran is attacked, Russia will come to its aid. Russia will not enter that kind of treaty with Iran, nor will Iran enter that kind of treaty with Russia. It'll be a treaty where they talk about enhanced security relationships. Two, there is no Shanghai Cooperation Organization military capability. There is no BRICS military capability. There is no unified military capability whatsoever to align against the United States and Israel if they choose to attack Iran. Iran will be on its own. China will do nothing. Russia will do nothing because they can do nothing. Russia is embroiled in a conflict in Ukraine. Russia is not going to seek a third world war over Iran, especially if it's about an Iranian nuclear program that violates international law. Russia knows that Iran is a signatory to the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty. Russia knows that Iran is not allowed to have a nuclear weapons program. And if the United States attacked Iran, it would be to destroy nuclear enrichment capacity and other nuclear capabilities that gives Iran de facto nuclear weapons capability. Today, Iran is a nuclear weapons power. It is less than a week away from being able to develop a nuclear bomb when the political decision is made. This is unacceptable. It should be unacceptable to every nation in the world, but it's definitely unacceptable to Israel, and it's definitely unacceptable to the United States. And while Donald Trump is not looking for a war, he is not going to let a situation develop in the Middle East where Iran becomes a declared nuclear power. So Iran will be given a choice up front: negotiate or die. That's the choice. Negotiate or die. And Iran, I believe, has already chosen negotiate because they understand the consequences of choosing death. They will die. Their state will be terminated. Now, they may bring a lot of people down with them. But understand this too. When we speak of the United States attacking Iran's nuclear infrastructure, we're speaking of a nuclear war. So it's not something where you say, well, just bomb the nuclear sites, don't worry about anything else. No, the nuclear sites, Firdos, for example, the underground nuclear enrichment plant, cannot be destroyed by conventional means. That's why Donald Trump, when he was president, changed the nuclear employment plans of the United States so that it incorporates a new family of nuclear weapons specifically designed to destroy Iran's underground nuclear facilities. So when we attack Iran, if we do, we will use nuclear weapons and we will use them decisively. This is the reality of a Donald Trump as president. So this is why I believe the Iranians will make the right choice. They don't need nuclear weapons. The Russian security relationship is such that it will be able to enhance their conventional deterrent capacity so that Iran can survive. And given the changing geopolitical realities regarding who Israel views as the number one threat, allowing Iran to retain strategic deterrent, non-nuclear deterrent capabilities isn't a bad thing from the Israeli perspective. And if it's not a bad thing from the Israeli perspective, it's not a bad thing from the American perspective. So I do think that there is a fundamental change. Remember, this new Iranian president was elected on a platform of moderation, was elected on a platform that said he wants to reach out to the West. The Iranian people voted for him. And while, yes, Khamenei is the supreme leader, he has to respect the will of the people. And therefore, I believe he will give this new president the opportunity to enter into negotiations that are designed to preserve Iran as a Islamic republic, because the alternative is the end of the Islamic Republic of Iran. Now, on Palestine, and well, I'll leave it there. You can respond.
Gerne noch ein paar andere Themen, deshalb
I would like to talk about some other topics as well. So let's change the scene for the moment. The big question in regard to the Trump administration is, of course, what happens with the United States and China relationship. In the last Trump administration, things started with a ray of hope. Xi Jinping organized a big reception in China. He spent the whole day with Trump, brought him to the Forbidden City to explain the Chinese traditions and history to him. So there was progress, but when the COVID pandemic hit, Trump apparently listened to somebody like Steve Bannon and accused China of the China virus narratives. You know the whole story. Now the situation is completely different than when Trump left the White House 4 years ago. There was a power constellation that was maybe equally powerful, but in the meantime, immense changes have occurred. China's goal is until 2035 to 25 to be the leader in 10 technology sectors. There's an Australian website, the technology tracker website of ASPI, and they are reporting that China has already reached leadership in 38 out of 48 technology sectors. So China has made the leap to not only a productive machine, but also towards independence. They don't steal technology from other countries because they have made technology progress to their own focus to become leaders worldwide. Additionally, the BRICS countries, after 11 years, and also the Belt and Road Initiative of the New Silk Road, only within 11 years, they have changed the world. BRICS have become a huge dynamic and factor where they represent over 80% of the world populations by cooperating with the global majority, the global South. Just a few days ago, there was a dramatic development where Indonesia, which originally was only a partner country, was declared a partner country during the Kazan BRICS summit, has now become a full member, which is adding more weight to the BRICS. And generally, you could say this is a new system in the making. And of course, you are right. SCO, etc., is not intended to, or BRICS, to replace the NATO or to become in competition, to act in competition to the United States. Xi Jinping often has reiterated that he wants to moderate, or he wants to create a model of new great state relationships. Obama has not replied to this, but this offer is still valid, and I'm convinced that if Trump would not go to a trade war policy, but on the contrary would offer the global majority his cooperation, I'm 100% sure that he would be received with open arms. Do you see a potential how, with the combination of Trump's cabinet, would there be a hope that the United States would be catapulted out of geopolitics and cooperate with the BRICS nations?
I agree with your analysis that that would be a wise course of action, but this isn't going to happen. The United States needs an adversary in order to make policies resonate amongst the American people. There must be an enemy. And as Trump seeks to move away from traditional military-on-military adversarial relationships by ending the conflict in Ukraine and divorcing America from NATO, there will be economic tension between the United States and China. But I think it's going to be manageable tension. What I mean by that is if you take a look at some of the things that Trump has said he's going to do, securing the Panama Canal. Why? Because of concerns of Chinese control over the Panama Canal. So the idea is to strengthen America in its own backyard. Why does Trump want to go and take Greenland? Because of concerns over the Arctic as global warming takes place and additional sea lanes and resources open up. China has been reaching out to the Greenland government to get economic relationships in the area. Trump wants to terminate that. Trump wants to keep China out of our backyard. So I think that's the kind of conflict we're going to be looking at. Not war, but about markets. Who's going to control what markets? I think the United States is not going to yield the North American or South American market to China. And I think you're going to see Trump fight very aggressively to reverse some of the inroads that China has made. But the sacrifice, I believe, will be in the Pacific. Trump famously or infamously pulled out of the Trans-Pacific Partnership, creating a window of vulnerability that China exploited by replacing the TPP with the largest free trade association in history. Now we have BRICS on the horizon. It's not just Indonesia, which became a full member. Malaysia is seeking membership. Thailand is seeking membership. That's the end of it. And I watch what happens in the coming years. The Philippines will be seeking membership. And then watch what happens. Japan will be seeking membership. South Korea, because that is the economic future for the Pacific. Trump, I think, will be satisfied to let America become Fortress America and then operate from a position of strength. Why compete with Chinese global supply chains when you can secure your own supply chains within Fortress America? I think that's the Trump approach, is to make America China-proof and then compete with China economically, not militarily. Will it succeed? I don't know. But I do think that we're going to see years of tension between China and the United States, but this tension will be economic, not military.
Ja, aber das sind noch zwei Faktoren,
yes, but
die
there
man,
are two
glaube ich, sehen muss.
factors
Das eine ist
that
ja,
you have to
dass
add. First,
also die Leute was man
the
kollektiven Westen
people in the so-called collective West
haben im Grunde wirklich
have
keine Ahnung über die dramatischen
no clue
Veränderungen,
about the
die
dramatic
im globalen
changes
Süden, in
that
der
are
globalen
taking place
Mehrheit
in the global South and the so-called global
stattgefunden haben.
majority.
Also da ist eine
There is
Renaissance
a
von
renaissance of
antikolonialistischen
anti-colonial
Idealzugang, die nie
sentiment
vorher da war. Und ich
and
weiß, wovon ich
spirit
spreche,
never seen
weil
before. I
wir
know what I'm
waren
talking about
seit
because
den 70er
we
Jahren
have been, since the
intensiv mit der
1970s, we have
blockfreien Bewegung
intensively
engagiert bei dem Versuch, ein
discussed and
vernünftiges neues
worked with the
Wirtschaftssystem zu etablieren.
non-aligned
Und ich
movement
kenne
for a
die oder
new
sehe da
international
Fortschritte und
order,
Netzwerkwechsel,
which
die in
is
der Zwischenzeit
which is
stattgefunden haben. Da ist im Augenblick
which is
eine
more
absolute
equal.
Entschlossenheit,
And I know about all the setbacks, but there's a new resolution to create this new win-win perspective system, which is based on the system of the five principles of peaceful coexistence, respect of sovereignty, non-interference into the social spheres of the other nations, and etc. And that's a model which is for Africa, Asia, and even for Latin American states, clearly has made them see that it's more profitable to cooperate with China than with the United States, because with the United States you're only used as like a military base. I know what you mean with the Fortress America. The countries who are cooperating with America in the military sphere have no economic gain and benefit. Those who work with China are now realizing they get roads, high-speed rail, industry, infrastructure projects, economic zones, education for their students. And there's a process evolving. This is all a blowback reaction against the politics of the weaponization of the dollar currency as a weapon with the sanctions, etc. So the countries of the global South have come to the conclusion that the West, at least the neoliberal, the part of the West engulfed by the neoliberal paradigm, that they are a sinking ship. They are a system that is actually crashing down, and they have the resolution to create their own system. For example, the Chinese and others are saying we have emerged out of a 5,000-year-old tradition and culture, and that gives them the self-confidence to create their own future. It's a different spirit. You cannot compare it with the discussion in Europe or sometimes in the United States, but it's real and is motivating these states. And I think it would be a tragic development if we in the West would not be able to relate to this positive development. That means also that we in the West and Europe and the United States have to return to our best traditions. In Europe it would be Italian Renaissance, the German classics, the French École Polytechnique and other periods. In the United States it would be the idea that the United States stop prioritizing the Anglo-American tradition as the basis of their foreign policy, but go back to the policies of George Washington, of Benjamin Franklin, but also John Quincy Adams, who said we shouldn't seek, the United States should not seek foreign monsters or pursue foreign monsters, but we should have an alliance of equal republics and cooperate with them. So therefore, I think that the future of the next 50 years or so will be decisively depend on the question if we in the West are able to go back and remind ourselves of our best traditions and throw overboard the excesses of the neoliberal dogma. Is also there are cultural elements like everything is allowed, there is no standard anymore. And then, be in dialogue with the countries in Asia, even in Latin America and Africa, on an equal level. And this would be an element of the cultural the cultural element of the strategic situation would I think would be the most important of all.
I'm not disagreeing with you. I think that would be a wonderful utopian world, but that's not Donald Trump. You say the United States should go back to the time of George Washington, to the foundings when we were 13 colonies becoming a new nation. But that's not the United States that Trump wants. Trump is seeking to revive manifest destiny, America at its imperial worst, America seeking expansion, domination. That's the America that Trump is talking about. And it isn't a win-win world. It's a zero-sum game world where if you win, we lose. So for us to win, you must lose. That's the competition spirit that's coming in with Trump. And I understand the global South may believe that it's ready to take on the collective West and that the collective West is a sinking ship. Donald Trump isn't the collective West. Donald Trump is the United States of America, standing up in all of its terrible glory. We aren't a sinking ship. We're the most powerful nation on the planet. We just haven't been managed properly. And I'm just stating the facts. You may not want to hear the facts, but we will crush any opposition. I challenge anybody in the global South to think that they're going to walk away from the dollar. Donald Trump isn't Joe Biden. Donald Trump is Donald Trump. He will not let you walk away from the dollar. He will destroy you if you attempt. And he has put BRICS on notice. And watch what BRICS does. They will not move aggressively to find a replacement currency because that's not the war they want with the United States. There will be dollar dominance for decades to come.
Also, damit Amerika
so that the United States becomes great again, it would require. Currently, the United States are wasting away a lot of their physical assets or of its industrial potential in the military-industrial complex. Through the paradigm shift that has already started a couple of decades ago, when there was a shift of production towards cheap labor markets, the United States have outsourced a lot of the middle income level, and its power lies in the military component. But if you look at the middle income section, and you look into other parameters like the infrastructure, which is in a desolate state. China has over 45,000 kilometers of high-speed rail. The United States has basically none, and in China the average speed is 350 kilometers per hour. And now they're going to work on a test track for 400 kilometers per hour. It would be a possibility that Trump could make America great again by investing, creating the investments, or shifting the investments to the civil productive sector, and starts a retooling of the industry. For example, why does the United States not build a high-speed rail system between all the major cities? Why does the United States not make realize the politics of the frontier towards the west and build new modern cities in the middle area of the United States. America could be great again if they would utilize the resources which they're now using for military purposes of destruction, which are just feeding the coffers of the big money investors. It only is advantageous for a very small fraction of the population, but the masses of the population are not gaining from this. On the contrary, the life expectancy within the recent 5 years have actually decreased, which is an indicator for a decaying economy, which this can all be remedied if Trump would say, I do for the United States what Chinese did for China and what the BRICS are doing for other countries in the global south. I rebuild America economically so that it shines through excellency and would be a peaceful partner, and the American population would have the greatest benefit. Do you see a chance that this would happen, or is this completely excluded?
Completely excluded. Because the American people don't think like this. The problem is the American people. We elected Donald Trump because many Americans believe that his aggressive stance reflects what America is. You know, we are still a nation that believes in American supremacy, in American dominance, and the need for American supremacy and American dominance. It's not because we've done an academic analysis of the facts and realized that mistakes have been made. We're people who wake up every morning, look in the mirror and say, I'm an American. I'm the greatest thing in the world. Even though I'm living in a house that's falling down with bad plumbing and I have to go out on the street with potholes and all that, I fooled myself into believing this. And we're not going to allow the United States to behave in any fashion that doesn't reflect the dominant American. Now, this could change over time, but it's not going to change under Donald Trump. Donald Trump has as his mantra, peace through strength. And so he will be seeking to revive American civilian industry. But, you know, he's going to do it not by following the Chinese model, but by following the Trump model. And that's a brute force model. For instance, I think we're looking for a period of extreme tension between the United States and Mexico coming up. As we will try to return industries that have fled to Mexico and bring them back to the United States by imposing tariffs that make it financially impossible for those businesses to continue, while at the same time shutting down the border to address the immigration issue and putting ourselves on a near warlike footing with Mexico over the cartels. That's brute strength. That's not about sitting down and working with people on a human-to-human basis and all that. That's America dictating the outcome. And that's how Donald Trump is going to operate. He's going to seek to dictate outcomes. Now, we know when he gets pushback that he will alter his approach. We see this with Russia. He was going to solve the problem with one phone call. Now he says it'll take 6 months. Why? Because when they put their initial peace plan on the table for the Russians, Vladimir Putin in his end-of-year press conference said, not even going to consider it, isn't going to happen. And Trump realized that he's going to have to change his ways because Putin stood up. Putin was strong. But there's very few nations in the world that can stand up and be strong to the United States, because there's very few situations where the consequences of the United States failing would resonate meaningfully back on America. Ukraine is one such place. Russia is one. But the global South, who in the global South is going to stand up to us? Brazil tried. This is going to be a very interesting year for Brazil as they take on the BRICS chairmanship. At the same time, Trump is going to tell them, if you go forward with anything meaningful on BRICS, I will destroy you. He's already said that. No one in the global South can stand up to the United States. That's a sad fact. And Trump is very aggressive. So I don't see the world going in a utopian way. I see the world becoming a playground between BRICS and Fortress America.
Ja, also wenn man die Sache genauer ansieht, dann ist ja das,
if you look closer, what China is doing economically is actually comes very close to the American system of economy or economics as it was practiced and developed by Alexander Hamilton and was dominating the first decade after the American Revolution, which was revived by Lincoln and then by Franklin D. Roosevelt with his New Deal, the Reconstruction Finance Corporation, based his policy on that. Kennedy had elements of this. So in other words, apart from ideological dogmas, if you look at the substance of the issue, that China is actually putting the emphasis on the physical side of the economy and the invasion and the general welfare, which is actually the American ideal of economics. But whereas the American system as it is practiced now in the United States is actually the British system as it was put into contrast by Frederick List and Henry C. Carey, the American and the British systems of economics. It would be great to organize seminars and conferences on these issues where you actually would invite leading Chinese economists and American economists, not only, of course, not from the Chicago School of Neoliberalism, but more down to earth, people who are bankers and who are connected to the real economy, and would actually compare these and discuss these parameters. You would come to the conclusion, I'm sure, that there is a form of cooperation possible. And what you said about the situation vis-a-vis Mexico, of course, it could turn out to be an ugly thing if Trump, in fact, would try to, push back 15 million illegal aliens and build a wall and has a war against the drug mafia. This could be a very ugly scenario, but also there would be a better way. We in the Schiller Institute made a proposal that you could actually go to the roots of the problem. Why are the refugees actually coming? Because the economies of the people are plagued by war and poverty, and if you invest them in the building up of these economies, you create an incentive for them to remain there and to build up their own economies, which is the same case for Europe. We have the chance either we will be seen by the entire world as the ugly people who are supporting genocide and basically cast away the so-called Western values, because we do have a double standard, or we are saying we are proving that we are able to do better. And I wouldn't say this is a utopia, but it's more statecraft in the tradition of political leaders who had a vision. We can say that. We can't say that. I'm sorry. You cannot say that some of the American presidents that I've mentioned already are utopianists, but they had a vision of how their own country and other countries could look, better. We are in a tectonic shift. I think that Xi Jinping is also discussing about a shift which hasn't been seen since 100 years. And I am saying it's a tectonic shift which hasn't been seen for 500 years, because colonialism has probably started around 1500. And if all of Africa and many Asian countries and Latin America, there is an ironclad will that they are, creating their own fate, and that they want to become middle income level countries, then we should support this. This is a way how the whole problems in the world could be solved in a humane way. And I wouldn't, declare this utopia, but it's a return of a more humane, humanistic conception of how to organize the world. And we, as human beings, we are the intelligent species. If we, as the rational species, are not able to solve the problems in a way that the outcome is a peaceful, humane coexistence, then I don't think we won't make it at all. But I'm optimistic, and I think that we are endowed, and if you appeal to this rationality, you can find solutions on a higher level than those on which these problems were created.
Again, I don't disagree with anything you said from a logic standpoint. Donald Trump is not a statesman, and he is not creating an administration capable of traditional statecraft. This is a revolution that has taken place. It's a revolution that will transpire domestically as Donald Trump seeks to tear down the very establishments that you would seek to appeal to. The traditional bastions of academic thinking, intellectual thought in America are not going to survive this revolution. They're going to be torn down and rebuilt in the image of something new. We don't know what that is because I don't think Donald Trump knows what that is. But what he does know is that what we call the establishment is the enemy of the MAGA agenda. And so there's going to be a conflict here. And there's going to be a conflict abroad as the United States redefines its relationship with the world. Donald Trump is not seeking to enter into masterful diplomacy. He's seeking to impose his will on the world. This is the reality, and it will probably fail. I mean, I'm not saying that this is going to succeed. This revolution will probably fail, will probably play itself out because it's unsustainable. But it could last for 12 years. It could last for 20 years. And during that time, unless the United States is on board, none of the things you're talking about can happen. They can't happen without America being on board. And I don't believe America is going to be on board. Name the great intellectuals of the Trump administration. Name the philosophers that have brought about the MAGA movement. There are none. Who is our lead diplomat? Marco Rubio. So right there, your smile says everything. You acknowledge that we don't have diplomacy, that we have sycophants, that we have toadies, we have yes men, we have neoconservative and neoliberal captured by the MAGA movement, but we don't have great intellectual thinkers, people who have thought this thing out and said, this is the approach. The MAGA approach is brute force. That's the approach that Trump is taking. There's nothing sophisticated about his approach. And unfortunately for the world, the United States has enough retained power that brute force will be effective for a period of time. I agree with you. I would like us to take a more structured approach like China has towards how it's economically developing. But there's a difference. China, started with nothing and has had great latitude to create change. America had much and is a rotting system. And now we're trying to fix the rot. It's a difference between building a new building and renovating an old decrepit building. It's much harder to renovate the old decrepit building. And America is an old decrepit building in great need of renovation. China's building new buildings. But we have a different problem. And I think the Trump solution might be to tear down the decrepit building and start anew. I don't know. Can we afford that? Is America ready for that? The American people have voted for something they don't understand. They don't understand what's about to happen, this revolution that's going to transpire. The world doesn't understand what's about to happen because nobody knows what the ramifications of this will be.
Okay, leider ist unsere Zeit jetzt
Okay,
schon
well, unfortunately, our
ans Ende
time
gekommen.
has come
Also
to
ich nehme
its
von
end.
dem, was du da
I'll
gesagt hast,
take from what
eigentlich ein
you've said,
optimistisches Bild mit, weil
take away an
wenn alles
optimistic
so
picture,
undefiniert
because
ist
if
und
everything is more
also ich
not
denke,
clearly
das ist eine
defined,
immense
I think
Chance
there's an immense
für
chance and
also alle
opportunity for all
Intellektuellen,
intellectuals as well
also
as
Unternehmer,
business people,
Akademiker,
academicians,
Wissenschaftler, Künstler.
scientists,
Das ist ein
artists.
Moment, wo man
It's a
eben eine
moment in
Situation, die
time
lange Zeit vollkommen festgefahren war,
where a situation
die
which
bricht
has
jetzt
been
auf. Das ist undefiniert,
completely
hat all
rigid is
die
now breaking
Schwierigkeiten, die du
apart.
genannt
It
hast.
has all the difficulties
Aber
that you
wenn
have
man jetzt
mentioned, but
interveniert mit einem
if
klaren
you intervene
Konzept,
with a
wie eine
clear
bessere Zukunft
concept and a
geschaffen
vision
werden
how to
kann,
create a
dann
better
ist
future,
es
I
meiner
think,
Meinung nach nicht
in my
aussichtslos.
opinion,
Und deshalb
it's
würde ich
not
sagen,
without
vielen,
hope.
vielen Dank, Scott.
And I would say, thank you very
Ich
much,
denke, deine
Scott.
Ausführungen
I
waren
think
extrem nützlich, also für Europa und
what you
Amerika
said was was very useful for the audiences in Europe.
Ich würde vielleicht vorschlagen,
And I would
dass wir uns in einer
suggest that
gewissen Zeit, nachdem Trump im Amt ist,
we
nochmal
are
wieder treffen und
meeting
darüber
again
tun,
after
wie
a
es
certain
bislang
while
entwickelt
after
hat.
Trump
Also du
has
bist ganz
entered
herzlich
office,
eingeladen, dass
and
wir
you are
das machen.
very welcome to join again.
Well, thank you for having me. I look forward to that. I would love nothing more than to be proven wrong on many of the things I said, because what I'm saying isn't what I want. I'm saying what I believe is going to happen, but it's not what I want to happen. What I want to happen is a world very much aligned with the one that you have discussed, where human beings meet together through logic and humanity and well-reasoned thought to come up with solutions. I would love that to be the world that we live in. But unfortunately, I don't think the MAGA revolution creates such people. But who knows? Let's find out in 6 months and let's see where we're at.
Du bist ja auch ein Amerikaner und
You're
wenn du
also
das
an
willst, dann
American,
ist schon mal
and if
ein
you want
wichtiger
this,
Punkt gemacht. Also
a
nochmal
very
ganz
important point is
herzlichen Dank.
made.
Bis
Thank
bald.
you very much. See you soon.
Thank you. Thank you.